Some games, like certain films and works of great literature, are so profound that the deeper messages in them are not instantly discoverable or evident. For me, Bioshock is one of those games. This, just like other works of great art, leave you with a sense that below the surface there is a lot more going on than the immediately obvious. On a superficial level, Bioshock is a story-based, political and perhaps science fiction first-person shooter. As we start the game, the controls are instantly familiar, as are the movements. Numerous games have tread this path before, and numerous others will continue to do so. Around 2007, few games, however, with the exception of Half-Life 2, have massaged our senses with such complex storylines. But it's not Half-Life 2 we're destined to discuss, but Bioshock. Many writers and video essays have nobly and concisely analysed Bioshock, its storylines, gameplay mechanics and so on, and walkthroughs and reviews of the game are numerous. This includes of course discussions around objectivism, the main socio-political thrust of the game, but not, as I'm doing here, the spiritual and esoteric. On first playthrough, as well as subsequent revisitations of the game, I couldn't help but notice and diligently seek out some of the occult esoteric symbology rooted in the game. These gnawed at the back of my mind until recently I promised myself I'd finally manifest them. So now is the time to bring to light some of the esoteric and hidden symbols found herein, and hopefully to clarify some of its profundity that makes this game more than just a good first-person shooter. And now let us begin our journey, as Jack and us go down the hill to fetch a pail of slaughter. The game begins inside of a typical aircraft as we are transformed into the role of the soon-to-be silent protagonist. We are seated and holding a parcel of some kind adorned with a large red ribbon. The significance of the parcel will become clearer later, but we do note a couple of striking esoteric features already. But what do I mean by esoteric? Esoteric, simply put, means intended for or to be understood by a few with specialised interest. For the purposes of this video essay series, I will treat esoteric as any symbol, sign or shape that has hidden meaning. This esoterica can be in the form of patterns of colours, numbers, shapes and all manners of non-verbal messages that the conscious mind doesn't perceive directly. In other words, things hidden in plain sight. So let's consider the package first. The package is blue and decorated with a red rose in the form of a ribbon. The wrapping paper is adorned with what almost look like butterflies, but that might be a stretch. Needless to say, it's red and blue. Red and blue are the two opposite colours in the visible light spectrum, and so we are informed that, at least for now, the game is taking place firmly in our ordinary physical reality. Now the colour red is significant in esoteric lore. Named rubedo in Latin, it was adopted by alchemy to represent the fourth and final transformative stage of the soul. It thus represents alchemical success, especially when in relation to the soul. For the record, the previous stages are coined albedo, nigredo and sertranitas, but as I stated, rubedo represents the completed alchemical process. In Jungian theory, rubedo equated to the achievement of the individuation, which marks the completion of the self integrated into a well-functioning whole. In other words, both of these doctrines espouse a completion process, which, as those who have played the game will know, is a significant undercurrent to the story. It's interesting also to note that in alchemical art and writings, the red rose is often manifested in order to refer to this idea. On another level, the red rose is also a symbol of another esoteric school, and that is Rosicrucianism. Rosicrucianism, which literally means Red Cross, was a spiritual and cultural movement that arose in the 17th century, and this announced the existence of a previously unknown esoteric order to the world, in which truths were concealed from the average man in a similar way to the Kaballah, Hermeticism, Alchemy, and even mystical Christianity. So what I'd like to posit at this point is that already, at least subconsciously, through the language of esoterica, we are being subtly informed that something beyond our material realm is likely to play a part in the narrative. We might also posit that Jack is about to start a significant spiritual journey, albeit in video game form, and this is one of the many reasons that this game is deeper than initially experienced. Dr. Jordan Peterson espouses that order arises when a person knows where they are and where they are going. In this order, you are calm and moderately happy. Order, however, can at any moment be shattered and turned into chaos. When one is in a chaotic state, the effects can be destructive, and obviously the world is unpredictable. Dr. Peterson believes that too much chaos or too much order is not productive, and so the true hero walks between the two poles and creates a new order out of chaos. In Bioshock, Jack is thrown from order into chaos the moment he opens the parcel. The world of order in the plane becomes absolute chaos in the icy Atlantic, and the subliminal question of the game narrative is, will you become the hero? The answer, of course, is yes, assuming you play and complete the game. But my point is, another subsurface part of the game's narrative is the hero's journey. The hero's journey is actually known on some level to all of us. The Matrix, Star Wars, and numerous other films manifest this idea, and that's the reason why Bioshock is deeper than your average PC shooter. Returning to the esoteric, there's one last piece of lore I'd like to throw in here, and that's the tarot. The tarot, along with the Kaballah, sees man's life as a kind of journey. In the tarot, the major arcana cards are numbered in order to signify the steps required in order to reach perfection. Here, at the beginning of the game, whilst we are still in the plane, Jack would be represented by the Fool's card. This card contains some clues as to what condition a person's spirit will be at the start of a spiritual journey. The card itself, aptly, is numbered not 1, but 0. This is intentional, as the 0 represents a naive and unenlightened person who is just starting a new journey. This journey begins with a leap of faith, and I think it is obvious in the symbology that this is a journey destined to be fraught with danger and uncertainty. Following this, we as Jack will have to ascend from the Fool and become the Magician, which is card number 1, and this highlights the beginning of our initiation. But there's still more. The name of the plane is Apollo. Apollo in the Roman tradition represents the god of order, and this is contrasted to Dionysus, who represents the god of chaos and ecstasy. So here again we have the idea of two opposing forces that contrast each other, and if Jordan Peterson is correct, they need to be tamed by the hero. Perhaps then we can imagine Jack as the manifestation of the Apollonian dialectic, and Rapture as the Dionysian chaos that our hero has to rebalance. Lastly, Apollo in the Hellenistic tradition was often deemed to be a sun god. It seems then that we have the next sun god fallen from the heavens. He is distressed and in need of a salvation. It's clear in this part of the game that not only do we have the moon as the light source of the landscape, but furthermore there is an artificial moon on top of the statue. In conclusion to this essay, I'd like again to return quickly to the alchemical traditions. A facet of alchemy is that the alchemists wish to turn base metal, for example lead, into gold. In genuine alchemical tradition, however, the transformation of lead into gold wasn't considered to be a literal enterprise, but the idea of perfection of the soul. The act of attempting the transformation could be seen as an activity in which attempting to change base matter in this way also changed the non-material part of man. In relation to Bioshock, we might say at this juncture that the moon represents something like base metal, and it is only through transformation of that into gold that the sun can return to lighten the landscape. By this I mean we can understand that the hero, i.e. Jack, has work to do and the journey is just beginning. It's interesting to note that by the end of the game, Jack returns from the underworld and into the light of day, which as we know is lit by the light of the sun. We can therefore say that the universe is in balance as the moon and the sun are now lighting day and night. So in conclusion, Jack is beginning a spiritual and hero's journey ignited by the chaos caused by the plane's explosion, and it is in Rapture, i.e. the underworld, that the journey will begin, progress and ultimately conclude, as we overcome the numerous and chaotic inhabitants therein. By the way, if by any chance you're still in doubt about the symbology I have highlighted, here is the all-seeing eye of Providence which is hidden in plain sight on the lighthouse itself. In part 2, we will continue our quest and discover how Jack begins his initiatory journey as he steps down into Rapture itself. Rapture is full of chaos, madness, death and salvation, and littered with esoteric clues as to why in fact this game is more than just a game. For me, it is a spiritual path we will be walking, and I hope you'll continue with me on this ecstatic and fascinating journey into Rapture and the crazy minds that inhabit it. Thanks for watching. Part 2 coming soon.